Alright guys, so let's talk about the Byzantines. Byzantines are a civilization with no eco bonuses, so basically they do not have eco bonuses, instead they do have army discount. All their camel riders, skirmishers and spearman line, so spearmen, pikemen, halberdiers do have a discount of minus 25%. So the best way to actually level up things against any civilization, especially considering that they might actually have access to economical bonus, is to actually force fights and trades using your units. So during feudal age, focus on spearmen and skirmisher. On castle age, focus on elite skirmishers and camels, and then just adapt according to your tech tree, but that's how you want to play with the Byzantines. Let me show you some way of doing this that I did here on this game against Kasva. It's Byzantine versus Bohemian. He was coming here with militias, maybe men at arm. I did scout, so I just said, okay, I cannot fight him. I'm just going to wall my eco inside, and Byzantines are great to do this kind of defense because they do have extra HP on their buildings. That's a feature for the civilization. And then I basically started to make both spearmen and skirmishers forward here, closer to his base, to actually force confrontation. So this is exactly what you want to have. Even if I'm not killing anything, I have 2 idle villagers there fighting, while Kasva has 4. So even if I do fail to kill his villagers, I'm still not allowing his villagers to work, which means that eventually my economy is going to scale a bit better. Regarding the defense, well, if you are defending from like scouts or early rush, just trust on your walls here. And meanwhile, if your opponent tries to go archers or anything, you just force fights there. Not only that, but you can also use the map control to build towers to try to take out some of the enemies. There are always ways to forcing damage and to forcing your opponent to have a bad economy setup. Placing towers so that he cannot wall back, shooting the farms so that the villagers go idle if they try to get those farms. You can always create things that can frustrate your opponent, but constantly producing skirmishers, in my opinion, is the best way to play this civilization. If the guy adds scouts, what do? You actually go for more spearmen, and basically that's how you want to do. The opponent will usually try to answer that by going his own skirmishers, and what do? In this case, you double the bet because you do have discounts and you want to have more skirmishers than your opponent. It's as simple as that. You spot an enemy army, go after that. Your opponent has no as long as you're pressuring your opponent, he won't have the freedom to take his army out of his base and attack you. So this is the classical forward from the Byzantines. It doesn't matter how many villagers you are bringing forward. What does matter is that you keep harassing this guy, keep annoying his villagers, and skirmishers are not so easy, doesn't easily kill villagers, especially because the villagers already have 2 pierce armor after Loom. So you need like 40 hits from skirmishers to kill a vill. So do not focus so much on or do not frustrate yourself if you're not killing villagers. As long as you are interrupting, disrupting, and not allowing this guy to work properly by constantly annoying him with the skirmishers, you are actually doing a good job. Players tend to underestimate skirmishers, and because of this they are eventually going to lose 1 villager or 2 during the feudal age just for trying to wall and defend. Army versus army is always good for the Byzantine because you have the discount. So if the enemy tries to somehow wall or avoid the fighting, you just keep pressuring and attacking and forcing him to invest. Idle the farmers, idle the gold ones, idle everyone while you just keep harassing him with the skirmishers. And as I said, eventually even pro players will end up losing a few villagers on this very annoying process, which is fighting against skirmishers. And what is the point of increasing your army count here? The point is that once you are going to the castle age, skirmishers can be upgraded and you can have even more armor. So defenses like this one, towers, will actually become very obsolete once in the castle age, unless of course you are facing some guy that has towers that automatically upgraded themselves, Koreans. You were actually going to do a good job here with the elite skirmishers from the Byzantines. On this game, for example, as you can see, I have 2 big packs of skirmishers. I have more than 20 of them. Then I just upgrade elite skirmisher, which means that right now my army do have 5 pierce armor. And now take a look on this specific scenario. Kasba wants to go for the Bohemian Hussite wagon. It's excellent unit. Honestly, I think that 2 wagons can actually kill all of my skirmishers if I do let him engage. So that's a very good counter to skirmishers. But I do have the skirmishers, he still has to invest into the wagons. I was constantly hurting his economy, and I'm even starting to make for a few knights or camels as the Byzantine. What do you do in this scenario? Well, basically you can dive your opponent and trade your skirmishers for villagers, and that is always going to be an excellent trade if you have the Byzantines. One last view, 2, 3, fourth one just died. Maybe 51 here? No, he did save. 51 here. So that's basically the idea. You just trade your army. I just lost like 2 or 3 skirmishers, but I did manage to kill like 5 villagers, so it's totally worth it. And basically, if the guy has to enter buildings to shoot down your army, his economy is idle while your economy is just working fine. So basically, in this way, forcing army as the Byzantine and diving the enemy towers and everything else is actually a good way to benefit yourself from the bonus from the civilization. So go for a massive army and dive into your opponent's eco, either on feudal or on castle age. Of course, I'm not talking about getting 4 skirmishers and entering the enemy's TC, but rather get a bigger number of skirmishers and just go around and get this guy here. Screw him over. Another good thing about the Byzantine is that their monks actually heal twice as faster. So every Byzantine monk heals 100% faster. So having a few monks here to support your army is always great. Monks to support the skirmishers is excellent. Skirmisher plus monk is an excellent combination, but if you're just doing regular monks, you can actually heal back your army very fast. So you can go there, trade with the enemy army, push back the injured units, and you're just going to heal yourself quite fast. Not only that, but the Byzantine technology tree is pretty useful. You actually have access to most upgrades here. You're only lacking herbal medicine, and honestly, you don't need herbal medicine with monks that heal twice as faster. Just have a few monks on your army and you are not gonna even feel the lack of this upgrade. So having good monks and having this good tech tree allows you to play not only with trash units, but also to use monks when the situation requires. For example, if you're playing against a guy that's going for a lot of siege, you can actually play with redemption monks and try to get some of them converted, while of course you keep harassing the enemy with your weapons, such as the skirmisher. So this is basically one of the uses from the Byzantine. Let's analyze some games where the Byzantine actually plays towards a mid, castle age and imperial age to see how this actually goes and how this civilization actually performs. Alright guys, let's talk about one of the best civilizations of the game, but one very special one, the Byzantines. Why are they special? Well, for a very simple thing here. They have no economical bonuses. Yes, you heard me right. There is no direct economical bonuses for the Britons. As other civilizations might have like faster hunter, faster woodcutters and things like this that you're just gonna boost their economy since an early stage, well, the Byzantines are not one of those privileged civilizations. They actually have a big issue here on their design. They have no economical bonus. So in order for you to have any leverage as the Byzantine, you do have to use the indirect economical bonuses. And what I mean by that is you can actually go for counter units. Let's talk about camel riders, skirmishers, and spearman line. All of those units do receive a discount, and that's a very significant discount, like 25% on their cost. So this means that if you are playing with the Byzantine, your spearmen are cheaper, your camels are cheaper, your skirmishers are cheaper, and this way will allow you to keep producing a good unit that actually counters the enemy unit. So camels to counter cavalry, elite skirmisher to counter ranged units, and spearmen to also counter the cavalry as well. And of course, with the use of these units, you're just gonna have some economical savings. How can you use those economical savings? Well, if you do want to advance to the pure age, it will actually cost minus 33%. So that's basically the idea. You save up resources by playing with the suggested units for the civilization, the counter units, and you do gain enough resources here to advance towards the next age. On this game, for example, we can see that our player in question here, South Wide, just played some small scout opening just in order to fully wall himself, and is just trying to go directly towards the castle age after going for a basic economy setup here. 18 views on food, the others here on the wood and so on. And he's still getting heavily raided here by the enemy scout, but eventually he gets rid of them and he is now on the castle age. Alright, once in castle age, how do you want to play as the Byzantine? You do want to add camels here to chase down the enemy units if he's playing with cavalry, for example, and you do want to play with later elite skirmishers. But if your opponent do attack you within a very reasonable timing here, like what's happening here on this matchup, you can actually use other support units such as siege and monks to defend yourself. One of the things here about the Byzantine is that they do have a bonus on their monks, which is monks heal 100% faster. Thanks to this bonus, the Byzantine monks are very helpful on fights. They can they are one of the best support units of the game, of course, because they do help to counter powerful units and even siege with the addition of redemption. But healing your units faster just allow you to have a great support unit. You can also keep monks behind elite skirmishers to keep healing them while they fight, and they are just gonna be unbeatable. So this is one of the ways to play with the Byzantine. The beginning for the civilization is usually a bit chaotic, but once you start using your support units and your suggested ones, the camel, skirmishers and the spearman line, you are just gonna have a great economy and good wood savings. Right here on this game, he's playing against a Khmer player. The Khmer player is just having way more villagers, his economy is a lot better, and he will most likely be able to click to Imperial Age sooner than the Byzantine. That's how things usually go when you are playing against a civilization with some kind of economical bonuses. But the Byzantine, well, it shouldn't fear this situation, because he can just fight back using siege, camels, monks, and of course, later on Imperial Age, he can transition fully into his units, such as the elite skirmisher, halberdier, and Revi camel, depending of course on what your opponent is doing. If you're not playing against any kind of cavalry, there's no need for camels, but if you are playing against any kind of cavalry or a civilization that will probably place cavalry, having a few camels on the field will always be good. On this game, as you can see, with the use of several monks, mangonels and so on, he can get quite some good fights, and of course, as soon as the fight ends, having a lot of monks will allow you to just heal your units to a good extent, and this will provide you extra safety. Let's now also talk about another thing about the Byzantines. All of their buildings do receive extra HP. Starting from Dark Age, they are gonna have 10, 20, 30 and 40% extra HP per age. This means that attacking a Byzantine town center, for example, is a lot harder. It has more HP. A Byzantine house has more HP. A Byzantine stable has more HP. So all of its buildings having more for having extra HP makes up for a great defensive civilization, and that just gives you extra time to think. Right here you can see the Byzantine going heavy here for the elite skirmisher line, despite getting heavily pushed by the enemy arbalesters. Damn. Really getting heavily pushed, right? But once you have your trash units fully upgraded with like their armors and their attacks, you can actually start to get some fights. Let's talk about one of the biggest plays that the Byzantine can do, which is basically placing a castle on the top of a hill. This might look very simple, this might look very intuitive, and it is, but different from other civilizations, the Byzantine castle already starts with 6700 HP, so 6720 HP, and that's a lot. Let's take into consideration this scenario here. You have a Khmer trying to push wide here. The Khmer castle has 4800 HP against the Byzantine castle that has a lot more. The Byzantine castle is placed on the top of a hill, and as you can see, the Khmer has already 2 trebuchets ahead of the Byzantine. So in a regular situation, the Khmer should always win this treb war, but let's see what happens when you actually fight against a Byzantine. The Byzantine can just send multiple villagers to repair his castle, even buying stone if necessary. Since he's not gonna be using a lot of his gold on other units, he can just keep playing and focusing, for example, on the skirmishers. And he's starting to counterattack the enemy castle, for now with a single trebuchet. Maybe he will add a second one. As you can see, there are right now 5 trebuchets shooting the Byzantine castle, guys. This should be enough to take any regular castle down before it can even react. But the Byzantine has its secrets and has its weapons. For example, there is a bombard cannon. The Byzantines do have access to gunpowder units such as the hand cannoneer and such as the bombard cannon. So those support units can actually be great for the siege wars as well. The first trebuchet fall down to the bombard cannon. He is now shooting the secondary trebuchet that will soon fall as well, together with the camels shooting. There goes two less trebuchets. Now the enemy still has 4 trebuchets, but the cannons, well, the bombard cannons are still shooting down those traps, and the castle is still getting repaired. So, as the enemy castle is about to die to only 2 trebuchets, this Byzantine castle endured a heavy push from at least 6 different trebuchets. At some point, there were like 5 trebuchets shooting non-stop. So this is insanely good. And of course, as the game keeps going on, the Byzantine castle outlived his opponent, and basically you do have what Byzantine should be like. Elite skirmishers being massed, heavy camels being massed, and now winning trap wars against civilizations without bombard cannons by shooting down their castles with traps while sniping their trebuchets using your own bombard cannons. That's basically the core play from the Byzantine. And of course, since you have discounts, it means that he's only paying 19 food and 26 wood per skirmisher. That's one of the cheapest units from the game. So this big saving allows you to keep producing army, and on this stage of the game, the Imperial Age, economical bonuses are not so relevant because you have most of your economical upgrades and you can actually match your opponent's economy no matter what he's doing. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned it, guys, but the Byzantine monks do heal 100% faster. So if you can use this combination of army with a few monks behind, or at least together, always trying to heal up your army, you are always going to have a great force. One trap war in favor of White. Second castle taken down by the Khmer. Now there is another castle from White getting pushed, guys. Will this castle survive? Yes. He just starts to repair the castle. He doesn't need any upgrade here for his castle to be already such a bastion. But if you do need, well, be aware you do not have masonry or architecture. Of course, you already have 3 HP, man. You cannot have all, right? But if you do want, you can actually upgrade hoardings on your castle, which will just boost their HP by 1,000. So that's insane. You can actually have almost near 8k HP castle if you are a Byzantine player. And once again, third trap war that the Byzantine has won. So it's such a nightmare, guys, to kill a Byzantine because of how much those castles actually endure. There we can see 3 castles were down already for the Khmer, while he hasn't been able to take a single castle down from the Byzantine. And there goes the Byzantine going to push now the 4th castle from the Khmer. So Khmer just lost like his 4th castle, and again on this fight, it's not like the Khmer has much to do here. He's using one of the best compositions he could here, Arbalest plus Russar, but he's getting absolutely overwhelmed by the Byzantine power. So this is how Byzantine should play on the land here, with a lot of camels, with a lot of skirmishers, and of course, if at some point you get restricted on gold, you can actually replace the camel line by some halberdiers, but honestly, camels with all their HP and mobility are just one of the most perfect units, and they only are costing like here 41 food and 45 gold for such a great unit. There are of course small downsides from the Byzantine. For example, they do lack, for example, the bloodlines. So if you try to play, for example, a double gold composition like knights plus crossbowmen, you're probably gonna be on gonna have some difficulties. And if you are fighting against an infantry unit, infantry civilization, or against a civilization with like good shock infantry such as the Gen Swordsman, such as the Eagle Warrior, you might actually have to use other weapons. For example, the Cataphract, an expensive but strong heavy cavalry unit that actually deals extra bonus versus infantry. So this is the other option in the scenarios where you're actually fighting against infantry civs. To be honest, if you're fighting, for example, against a Goth player, and you just mass like 20 of those guys, the God has like absolutely no good way to deal with that. So you can just replace one of your core units from the Cataphract in case you need to fight against such units. So that's basically it, guys. This is how you should always be playing the Byzantine on the land. Let's talk about another big strength and very useful one for the Byzantines. The Byzantines do have two features that makes their conquest of water a lot better than other civilizations. Despite having no economical advantage, the Byzantines do have buildings that have extra HP, so 10, 20, 30, and 40% extra according to the age, and these will actually allow your dock and of your other buildings to resist more damage. Apart from that, the Byzantines also have fire ship and drones that do attack 25% faster. What's the meaning of this? In the 1v1, a Byzantine fire galley is actually going to win against a regular Civ fire galley. It's as simple as that. So often, even if you start later into the water fight, you can actually deal a lot more damage to your opponent and try to retake water. And not only take water, but also retake water. Look at this scenario. Miguel just lost his initial fight here versus Stomplace due to a lot of factors, but he is messing up fire galleys. The enemy has 3 fully health fire ship, while Miguel is still doing his. Since he has extra HP, he has more time to mess up fire galleys and then get them back. Going back to fight. Once he messes the fire galley and go for a clean fight like 3 versus 3, he easily wins due to 25% faster attack. That's basically it, and then upon having this map control, he can actually reinvest into the water by adding fishing ships or use this in strategical ways, for example adding drones later on Imperial Age to control those goats. Of course, this was just a small example on the Acropolis map, but this can actually happen in several hybrid maps. Let's discuss now about some other uses of the Byzantine civilization. They are actually pretty decent playing on hybrid maps because of their fire galleys, on water maps also because of their fire galleys, on land maps because they have like cheaper counters for everything and can force games with skirmisher camels and so on. But they can also be good on closed maps such as Arena. And the reason here is quite simple. Byzantines do have a good amount of bonuses that make them quite effective here. So first, let's start with their monks. Their monks do heal 100% faster, which is great. Their spearmen are cheaper, which means that if you want to go for a monk rush, it's easy for you to spend like 4 or 5 spearmen and kind of protect yourself from enemy light cavalry. You also have buildings with extra HP, which are great for trap wars, and then the synergy of all these bonus together make the Byzantine quite an okay civilization to play with monks and fast Imperial Age. So on this game here we have Bro as Portuguese versus FedEx playing as the Byzantine. He's just going for a very regular build, so there's no economical bonuses. This is one of the downsides of the Byzantines. You could actually do way better castle age timing to go for this very same strategy if you have had a civilization with some good eco bonuses such as Malay, Bengalis, Burmese. So all of those civs are probably a bit better than the Byzantine to go for the monk war. Despite that, the double monastery monk play for the Byzantines is still a very valid strategy because you can basically not only heal fast your scout, so you can actually trade and go back there, but you can also go there and fight off for the relics. Apart from that, guys, you also have free town watch, so if you do manage to make a few outposts here on the center of the map, you are probably going to manage to get a lot of relics and anticipate the enemy here in order to get good conversion timings. Right there, both players are fighting for the relics. As you can see, the Byzantine is constantly trying to engage his scout into fights and getting it back to get fully healed to full HP. And he's already starting to invest here into the stone. Why? Because basically he can later place here a castle to go there and pressure the enemy with a fast Imperial Age. So invest heavily into farming, at least 10 to 12 farms, go for an early university, and your Imperial Age as the Byzantine is actually going to receive a 33% discount, which means that you are only going to play 667 food and 536 gold. So basically, with this amount of resources, 33% less than a regular Imperial Age, you can actually click to Imperial Age before 20 minutes, even after doing a few monks and fighting for the relics. Click, dude, okay? You click it. Once you have clicked it, it's cool. As soon as you are on the Imperial Age, you can actually invest into more upgrades for the monks and outrange the enemy monks, while also getting atonement and other stuff. Apart from that, you can also call the enemy for a trap war, placing a castle forward and starting trading trebuchets versus trebuchets. And honestly, this is pretty decent for the Byzantines, and it usually work out for a very specific reason. You do have now buildings that have 40% extra HP. So if both you and your opponent drop castles around the same time, let's say that Bro did drop a castle there, the Byzantine player will have a almost 7,000 HP castle. So you basically have a 6,700 HP castle there, which means that you can actually win trap wars. And of course, you have the complete monk technology tree. If enemy tries to play with that against that during the castle age, it's just basically adding a few counters. If he tries to go massed ranged units, you can start to play siege or your own skirmishers. If he tries to play light cavalry, it's a matter of adding your own pikemen. And this is basically how you want to play on this stage of the game with the Byzantines. Any doubts? I hope not. I hope you guys do enjoy playing with the Byzantines. I think that, in my opinion, Byzantines are one of the most annoying civilizations to play against. They are hard to punish, they have counters for everything, and those counters are also cheap. So, honestly, very powerful civilization.